Okay, so for the first topic for our Clarification Tuesday, canceling and rebidding. So let's unpack this. So a few questions have popped up regarding canceling purchases. So there are no requirements for actually canceling a small purchase in procurement code or rules. So we advise you to follow the small purchase job aids for rebidding. So if you say, for a small purchase, they are set aside for small businesses, right? So you go out to your small businesses first, and if you maybe you don't receive responses, or if the response you received are unreasonably high, the quotes are, you can um, fill out the small business set aside waiver. And if it's less than $10,000, that will be signed by the APO. If it's greater than $10,000, it will be signed by the SPO. And it's your instructions for rebid are on the last page of that small purchase job aid. So, and I can understand why this might pop up. You get to a certain point in the procurement and you realize, well, okay, what do I do now? If you are resoliciting, rebidding, you go to the last stage of that job aid, and those are there. And really, all you're doing is you're changing as a part of the rebidding process. You clone and then you put in the new opening date, as well as you would attach the small business waiver. And then the big piece is who you're soliciting to. So you go to that bidders tab, and um, it's now restricted as a part of the bidder participation. And when you are searching for your vendors, you're no longer searching for just small business vendors. You are searching for all vendors with those NIGP codes. You don't need to go in and delete any vendors because it won't duplicate them in that bidders tab. So that is one question we get a lot. Do I need to go in and delete my vendors and then add new ones? You don't have to. The system will automatically just add the vendors that aren't on the list. As well as another question that does pop up from time to time, those vendors that were on the small business list, they are available to and allowed to respond to the second round. Okay, so now they can be awarded. It's just that they're also competing with all businesses and not just the small businesses if they were on that bidders list, maybe the previous week or 2 weeks prior. Okay, so small business set aside waiver is appropriate, and you solicit all businesses at that time. However, on a small purchase, if an agency would like to add a bid amendment to cancel, really it's just a courtesy to vendors. That's totally okay. It's not a requirement, but that is something that isn't specific in the job aids, but that has come up before. So just to let vendors know, as a courtesy to them, that it's being canceled, you can do that. However, it is not a requirement. And then just as a reminder, that bid amendment would only be for those small purchases that are $10,000 and above, since, as we all know, because we are just bid by gurus by now, right? If it's less than $1,000, it wouldn't even be going to that bid stage anyway, since we're just doing requisition and collecting our quotes for those informal quotes, which are those less than $10,000. Okay, so do you have any questions? Looks like we have a question. Do we have to award to a small business if the bid has gone out to all vendors? No. So I'm assuming at this point that you already have the small business set aside waiver. So at that point, let's take a step back. You've gone out to your small businesses first. You didn't receive any responses, or the response you received was way too high. You then fill out the small business set aside waiver, and in this case, let's just say it's for it's above $10,000. So the SPO then signs the small business set aside to allow the solicitation to go out to all businesses, not just small businesses. And then at that point, you don't have to award to a small business. To your question, you don't have to award to a small business if the bid has gone out to all vendors. At that point, you're going to the low cost. So small purchases always go to the low cost. Okay, hopefully I question appropriately, or to your question, right? Any other questions regarding canceling small purchases? Because when we get to canceling an IFB or more formal procurement, there is a little bit of a difference there. So I wanted to bring up the section 1.2040 in the rules, cancellation of solicitations. So any solicitation may be canceled before or after opening when the SPO determines cancellation to be in the state's best interest. An SPO may request that a state agency provide any information to assist the SPO in reaching a determination of whether cancellation is in the state's best interest. Nothing shall compel the award of a contract. So in this instance, if it is deemed that it's in the state's best interest to cancel a solicitation, the next steps will be, and I just pulled it directly from this is from B job aid, but the steps would be exactly the same to cancel a bid. So any solicitation may be canceled before or after opening when the SPO determines cancellation to be in the state's best interest. So what you do in order to notify all the vendors that it's being canceled, you create a bid amendment. So you go into the bid, you go to the amendments tab, you create a bid amendment. In the comment for the bid amendment, you briefly explain the reason for the cancellation, and then an opportunity will be given to compete on any resolicitation of similar supplies or services. Then you notify the SPO to apply the amendment. So you see here on the right-hand side, the SPO applies that bid amendment. And that's important because that is where the SPO is determining that that's in the state's best interest to cancel that procurement. Okay, so, and that's documented in the procurement file. Of course, anytime anybody applies any bid amendments or if there's any action taken in bid buy, as you know, it's documented, it's time stamped. Whenever you attach a document, it's attached by, Dave Luttrell on August 25th, et cetera. If I apply a bid amendment to cancel a bid today, it will say, bid amendment applied by Dave Luttrell on August 25th at 10. Okay, so that is really important. So I want to highlight that the SPO applies those bid amendments. Okay, any more questions on how we cancel a bid before we move on? Not seeing any questions. Okay, so let's talk about in Illinois Procurement Gateway, the IPG, the view all forms in PDF and the download documents buttons. And I'm going to go out to the system and walk through how we do this. But I wanted to show you on the job aids where it says Forms B and IPG printouts, including ownership information. So there are two different things that you will need to do. The buttons they do operate differently. And this is just taken, really, this is from the same IFB job aid in terms of what needs to be at the for this point, this would be the bid tab. So the Forms B is what the vendor will complete if they are in the Illinois Procurement Gateway. It has all the same information would be in the Forms A, just as a quick reminder there, since the Forms A is here on the sheet as well. But we also need not just the Forms B for that procurement, we also need the IPG printouts, including ownership information. So I'm going to take us out here and we're going to go to going a little bigger. I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so what I did here was I went in and I searched for my vendor and I went to Joe's Car Wash. I'm going to registrations and I put in information, the IPG printouts and information that are a part of the procurement file. So if I scroll over, well, that's really, okay, let me go to, I'm going to go to this one here. Actually, I'm going to go back so I can show you what I just did. I started clicking around too much. So we would go to the most recent one, active and accepted. The only reason I'm not going to do that one right now is because I know that there isn't anything attached to that one. So what you would do is you would go to the active and accepted registration. So you can see here it shows their submit date, when they were reviewed, and their expiration date. But I'm going to go back to an older one here because I know that there's something attached here. So up in the right-hand corner here, we have these two links here. One is view all forms in PDF, and the other one is download documents. They do operate differently, and you will need to select both. Now, first off, let's talk about the view all forms in PDF. This is really handy because if you scroll down, you see how you have all those different forms. Let me go back so I can show you. All these forms here that have the A through I are all the different forms that are needed, and they will match very similar to the forms A. Rather than going there and downloading each one of these forms, all you have to do is go to the upper right-hand corner. We select View All Forms in PDF, and it's going to bring up all those forms into one. And so all you have to do at that point, let me scroll down just to show you exactly what that looks like. Here are all of those different forms, all as one document. So it has all of the certifications, your financial disclosures, conflicts of interest, all those questions, IDHR, Board of Elections, etc. Now, I do want to highlight the difference here. So for instance, here you have an attachment. Now it doesn't include attachment here. If I'm doing that view all forms in PDF, it just gets the forms. So what you're going to do is you would go up and download. We need to go ahead and download that PDF, and you're going to attach that into BidBuy. Okay, so that is the one piece. If I go back to my thing here, back to our slide, that is the IPG printout, which actually I think is kind of funny. We call it printout. So used to calling it printout, but you don't actually print out anything, right? You can just download it and you attach it electronically. That takes care of that piece, but including ownership information, where we're going to go back and take a look at the attaching all documents. So once you download that PDF form, you're going to attach that, but then also we have the download documents form. So that ownership information, you can either go to form I, open that up, and go into this question 1, which would have the ownership information. In this case, it's a public entity, so it would have a 10K attached. Now, rather than having to dive into all that, it's a really easy way to just download documents. If I click that download documents, what it's going to do is anything that's attached to this IPG registration, so it potentially could be their requalification statement for a small business. It could be the ownership information. It could be the 10K if they're a publicly traded entity. I go through all of that just to say that you don't necessarily have to dig into that IPG registration and go searching for documents. All you have to do is you on the view all forms in PDF. Then we just click download documents. You hit download documents, and then it creates a zip file. You see down here in the bottom that it's created a zip file of all the documents that are there. And then you can just go in and attach that zip file into BidBuy. You don't have to go digging in to all the other documents that are attached and know specifically which ownership information. Now you certainly can, but we've made the decision that if you just hit download documents, you put in all the documents in the procurement file. That way you know that you're covered. Okay, and the question that had come up, and so this is why I'm clarifying this, and it's come from several different people from different agencies where they're doing one or the other, but not necessarily both. And so I, as if I didn't make that clear on one of our previous trainings, in that the all forms in PDF, so we need to have all those different forms in IPG, right? We need to have the all these forms A through I to document everything, but we also need that ownership information. Okay. We have a question here. Is section I essentially the same as the tax ID page? No, it's not. Let me open that up. And you said, sorry, it's a little hard to see here. Sorry, let me make it a little bit bigger. You can see. Section I is the same, not the same as the tax ID page. It is the same as your financial disclosures and conflicts of interest. So all the questions that they will answer are those same questions that they will match, that match the financial disclosures and conflicts of interest. So it talks about the individuals, do they include any contracts, or they in the previous 3 years had state employment, right? That's a very common potential conflict of interest that we run into. Okay. Okay. So answer that question there. Do we have any other questions regarding that? So it is really handy for those vendors that are using Forms B, but there is just a couple different that you need to do to be able to have all that information in the procurement file. Okay. And now we get to our fun fact of the day. It's my second favorite day of the entire year. I was so excited because I love banana splits. So I'm definitely getting one today. Today is National Banana Split Day. Everybody go have fun with your banana splits. And if you have a, my brother does this crazy thing with banana splits where he he overloads the bananas. So does caramel. He puts like 3 full bananas, everything. So everybody has a specific banana split recipe. So if you have anything that you'd like for me to try, I'd to try that. So anyway, have a great rest of your week, and as always, let me know if you have any questions. You can cpogs.training@illinois.gov. And everybody have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you.